My name is Jen. I work in Alumni Relations. We are really happy to have you logged in here for the webinar. I was able to see the presentation yesterday, and I'm really excited because it looks great, and I think it'll be an excellent start for everybody for the new year. I want to introduce our presenter today. Her name is Stephanie Schmeltzer. She is a wellness manager at the Difference Card. In her job there, she manages and implements a wellness program that focuses on clients developing healthy behaviors and driving down the long-term cost of healthcare. Stephanie was very active while at UNH. She was an orientation leader, a wellness intern, a student athlete, tutor, a healthy UNH intern, and an RA. Not sure how you did all that. She completed internship at the Institute for Health Policy and Practice while she was here. She is the recipient of the Norman Hubbard and Carolyn S. Booster Scholarship and an Italia Rail Scholarship as well. To add to that, she has a service award, and she obtained her BS in Nutritional Sciences from UNH and is a proud grad of Tulsa. She's currently pursuing a Master of Public Health from SUNY Graduate School of Public Health and Health Policy. I do want to recognize Emily D'Antonio was another presenter that was going to be with us today, and she unfortunately had a last-minute situation come up, but she did contribute to helping us move this webinar along, so we're sad that she can't be here today. I also wanted to just point out that at the bottom of the screen, there is a Q&A box, and we would love your questions. There'll be a portion at the end where you'll be able to ask questions, but feel free to put them in there throughout the program, and we will get to them later on in the program. So I am going to now turn it over to Stephanie. Thanks, Stephanie.
Perfect. Thank you, Jen. I appreciate that warm welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you guys are all doing well. Happy New Year. I'm really excited to be here, to be back and being involved in a UNH alumni webinar. And I'm really grateful for all of you spending your time with me today. So as you know, today's presentation title is called A Revitalized You in 2022. And this topic was intentionally named as we are going to be bringing vitality, bringing life and energy into the goals and actions and behaviors that we want to accomplish for ourselves in this new year. So to get started, here is what our discussion will be about today. We are going to be talking about New Year's resolutions or goals or intentions that you have set for yourself, or maybe you haven't gotten to that yet, and that's totally okay, right? New Year's is not the only time of the year where we get to set goals and intentions for ourselves. What I am going to ask for all of you is to have either a pen or paper nearby. If you don't have that nearby, you can use your phone, open up a Word document and your work laptop, because I want this to be an active participation where you're taking some time to reflect, and we'll start by building out your goals and really breaking them down and how we can be successful. We are then going to focus on the why and how we're going to accomplish the desired change that we set out for ourselves, and of course, give you some tips and tricks for you to remember along your journey, because this is a journey. All right, so now get those pens and papers out if you haven't already, and let's take a second to reflect. And I want you to write down either one goal or intention that you want to accomplish for yourself in this new year. Maybe this is a goal or intention you already know, you've prepared for this already. Again, maybe you haven't gotten the time to think about your goals or intentions, but just take this moment to write down that one goal or intention. So with your goal or intention that you have set out for yourself, let's look at the common resolutions that other US adults also set out for themselves in this new year. And so this data is reflecting US adults making resolutions for 2021. And what's really great about this data set is that it breaks it up into the different generations that people were born, but we can see that the common resolutions that people have for themselves is to improve their fitness, lose weight, and save more money. And I'm sure we have set these resolutions for ourselves before, and typically these are common resolutions that people do set for themselves on a yearly basis, and that's totally okay, right? It's always great to want to put yourself in a place where you're trying to improve yourself and maybe learn more about that certain behavior change or action. But the key here that we want to remember is that word progress. We do want to make sure, and we want to feel like we are making progress towards that behavior change and that goal that we're setting out for ourselves. Something that's really interesting about resolutions too is that I want you, and this is something I want you to reflect upon, is thinking about where your resolution is coming from. Is it coming from a place of hurt or shame? It's unfortunate that a lot of these resolutions that we even see here on the screen, we feel like we should be doing this, right? Maybe because of someone, the culture that we're in, societal's pressure, or maybe someone telling us that we need to do these changes. With making your goals and resolutions, I want you to think about where this change is coming from you internally. And so that brings us to the first part of our journey in setting our goals. It's asking yourself the question, why is this behavior or new habit important to me? Why is this change that I'm going to be working on, is it meaningful? How is this aligned with the core values that I have set for myself? And there's a big difference in having your goals and intentions be intrinsically motivating versus having extrinsic motivators. And so this is where we're really taking the time to reflect and thinking about what this change is going to bring for me. Why am I, finding myself on this journey of making this desired behavior change, and finding that aspect of the intrinsic motivation that you have for yourself. Extrinsic motivation is going to be something that's not always going to last. In general, motivation goes up and down. Some days we're feeling really good and some days we're not. But the matter of the fact is, if you're having that belief internally and that guidance that you are willing to make this change for yourself, it's going to hold you on just a little bit longer compared to feeling all the pressures that we get from the outside world of that feeling extrinsically motivated. Something I do want to highlight on this screen is this wonderful image by Liz and Molly. And throughout this presentation, we're going to be seeing many images from Liz and Molly. If you haven't heard of them, they have a really great book out there. They talk about emotions in the workplace. They are active on all social media accounts, but something to think about when you are in your journey of accomplishing your goals or behavior changes. Realize that whatever has happened in the past is things that you cannot change. You are here today, and the future is your story to write, and you have the ability to make substantial change within your future. And that is very empowering to know, and how to keep going and how to move forward. So more Liz and Molly images to come, but that's just one I wanted to highlight. So now that we've figured out the why of our goal that we're trying to accomplish, we are going to talk about how we can make our goals SMART. And I'm sure we've all heard of SMART goals before, and this is not to sound like a broken record, but SMART goals really do have a place in goal setting, as they help to build the foundation of how our goals want to perform and how specific we can get. So something I encourage you to do right now with that one goal that you wrote on that piece of paper or on your computer or your phone, if you can write down each line, SMART, S-M-A-R-T, and we're going to break down on how we can make your goal SMART. So the first part in making a SMART goal is being specific, right? And that's really thinking about defining the goal as much as possible, thinking about who is involved in this goal, what do I want to accomplish, where will it be done, and of course, most importantly, in making sure that you are being specific on your why. And to even, ensure that we're never forgetting our why, I would even star it, highlight it, keep a Post-it note in your desk to think about the why behind your goal. Because again, whenever those days do get tough and you are maybe losing sight of why you started to embark on this journey to begin with, at least you have something right in front of you that can give you that reminder. So hopefully you guys all have filled out your specific part of your goal, and now we can move our way down to how do we make our goal measurable. So there's various different ways we can track progress. We can track progress in a quantitative fashion. So thinking about facts, figures, numbers, and how we can measure our progress or success of our goal. You can also measure your progress in a quantitatively. And so that's thinking about your feelings or experiences that you have embarked on through your journey. Now, the thing is with progress, it's important that we do have something to measure, in the essence that progress can be an indicator for us to let us know, okay, we are on the right track. We are, making progress in completing our goal. Or it could be a really great indicator to let us know, things really aren't working the way that I planned. So what can I do to maybe change my route, change my system or approach that I've been applying to my goal to ensure that I'm getting back on track and moving forward. And this is why when we're thinking about progress, defining on how that's going to look for you and ensuring that regardless if it's going up or if it's going down, it's giving you the information you need in order to move forward. All right, so I hope you guys all wrote down how you're going to measure your goal. The next step that we have is thinking to ourselves, okay, is the goal that I'm setting out for myself achievable? There's the saying, of course, go big or go home, and there's nothing wrong with that saying. However, I like to start a little bit smaller than going all the way home. So once we have, when we look at our goals, sometimes when we have so many big goals, it can be super overwhelming. It can, we can feel a lot of pressure, and it can be too hectic sometimes. And when things get too hectic, it's so easy to throw away the towel. However, if we're making our goals small and stacking them up, those small goals have a huge impact over time. Just because they're small doesn't mean that they're any less important. So think about, is my goal attainable? Do I have enough resources, knowledge, time that I need in order to make my goal, successful? And you may not have all that to begin with, but those are things to think about, right? And things that you're going to need to grab along the way in order to continue to make progress in what we're trying to set out for ourselves. The next step is thinking about our relevance. And this is really great. It's another great step in encouraging that you are staying relevant to your why and your core values. And so when you're writing down if this goal is relevant for you, thinking about how this is going to impact you and rewriting your why in the decision that you're making to accomplish this goal. And then lastly, thinking about, is this goal, how can I make this goal timely? When we think about setting deadlines for ourselves and making sure that we're staying on track, it can help with being accountable and making sure that we are, giving ourselves that boundaries that we need and that push to ensure we are completing certain behaviors or tasks in the deadline that we set. And so I really do like setting a time or a deadline for my goal, in the sense that it does help myself be accountable. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, these are goals that don't always have to be started in January 1st. And I encourage you that, either quarterly or biannually throughout the year, you go back to your SMART goals and you see how you're doing to reflect on that progress that you have made. And if you need to change the time, the deadline of your goal, that's totally okay. Remember, you're in control of your own story and you're having the power to write your own goals. And so this is just a great, the SMART goal method is a great way to set up that foundation of our goal setting journey. So now that we have our foundation set up and we have made it specific as we can, and I hope you guys all wrote down your SMART goals on your piece of paper and thought that out for yourself. The next step is to develop the confidence within ourselves that we can accomplish the goals and behaviors that we set out. And so self-efficacy is the confidence that we have to perform a specific behavior. And that self-efficacy that we create for ourselves is going to be connected in helping our goals to become a reality. You know, there are many times throughout our goal setting process and whenever we're trying a new behavior or habit or learning something new, it is very easy to doubt ourselves. We're so quick as humans to doubt ourselves, and it can be really scary. And that lack of confidence is something that we put as a barrier in front of us in preventing us to moving forward, because we are scared of what might happen if we're trying something new that we're really not sure how it's going to work. And that brings me over to highlight this wonderful, again, Liz and Molly image. So I have found myself many times in this, asking myself this question right here, especially when I'm trying to learn something new or embark on a certain goal, you know, asking myself, well, what if this doesn't work out? And I think when we ask ourselves that question, it has to do with the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of other people thinking that we're a failure or how they're going to perceive us. And something that I rewatched recently, which is a Brene Brown, her documentary. Brene Brown is a wonderful author. She has a podcast and a Netflix documentary that I encourage you to watch if you haven't already. But what she says in the documentary, she says, there's no courage without vulnerability. And so what she means by that is that, you know, it is very vulnerable to put yourself out there, to try something new that you don't know what the outcome is going to be. But to understand that the essence of you trying something new is an act of courage. It's an act of bravery. And instead of asking yourself the question, well, what if this doesn't work out? Reframe that narrative and ask yourself, well, what if it does? And that is so powerful. It's such a great statement. It really gets me every time, honestly. I've read this image so many times, and it really just does make a huge difference when you change the narrative and change the questions that you're asking yourself and visualize what you will look like 6 months after you have completed this goal, a year from now, 10 years from now, or even tomorrow, right? Thinking about how you will be in a certain place and how you're going to feel. So this is a really great question, and a really great question I encourage you to ask yourself. Something that I want you all to do after today's presentation is just taking maybe 5 minutes and looking at the goal that you wrote for yourself and visualize what your life will look like 6 months, a year down the road after you have completed that goal. And when you're writing this visualization, write it in first person and saying, you know, I will be here because of this goal. I will have learned X and it has impacted Y and has made me feel Z, right? Thinking about where you're going to be and visualizing it, putting it down on paper, and using that also as a source of motivation that you know you can get to this point as you are on your journey. So I do encourage you to have a visualization reflection time for yourself 5 minutes after the presentation. Gives you a little bit more time to think and write down a few sentences. So after, you know, we've worked on creating the foundation of our goal, being specific, gaining the confidence that we need in order to complete the goal. We all know that sometimes confidence is something that can't come easily, right? It's one of those feelings that sometimes comes and goes. And this is where we're continuing the conversation of reframing that narrative, excuse me, so we can continue to feel confident in our goal setting journey. And so our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are all connected with one another. And this is when in therapy or when you go to a therapy session, psychologists, therapists, they use cognitive behavioral therapy. And basically this is, you know, a theory that suggests our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions are all connected with each other. And what we feel and how we act is going to affect what we think. And it could be vice versa. So thinking about the way that we're believing in ourselves throughout our goal setting journey, if it happens to be a negative thought, then we may feel pretty negatively about it. And it's going to maybe lead us to performing behavior that is not conducive to what we're trying to change. But if we're trying to reframe the narrative in the way that we're thinking and maybe making it a more constructive or positive thought, that's going to impact how we feel and of course impact how we act. And so these are just some examples of blurbs on how you can reframe the narrative and the way that you speak to yourself in the essence of trying to have a more constructive and positive view on some of the challenges that you may face throughout your journey. One that I always like to give to when we're thinking about exercise, a lot of us are always like, okay, I have to go exercise, I have to go to the gym. And even just saying that out loud, it brings so much burden and negative emotions to that action. And you're going to feel negatively when you probably end up at the gym. And those emotions are also what creates habits. And so if we're having constant negative emotions, we're not going to want to continue with that action. But reframing the thought and thinking, okay, I get to exercise today, that is going to lead to you feeling good about it and then embarking on that behavior. So throughout the journey of being specific in setting up our foundation, developing that confidence for ourselves, it's something that we challenge ourselves every day to reframe the narrative and how we speak to ourselves. And that's hard because we have about 80,000 thoughts per day. Michigan State University did some research and shows that about 80% of them sometimes could be negative. 90% of them are thoughts that we've already have. But the thing is, we have the power to change the narrative, to change the story that we're telling ourselves. So when we do have a bad day, which, they happen from time to time, and sometimes we are doing really well on our goal setting journey, but then we get off track. Something happens, right? Now, what do we do? And this is something now I'm going to give you just a minute to sit down and reflect upon. I want you to write down, when you are having an off day, what will you do to take care of yourself? Or what will you say to yourself in order to make yourself feel better? And this is really prepping you to be prepared when that bad day does come about. And so just for example, I know when I have an off day, it is important for me to connect with a friend or a loved one. And they help me feel better in the essence of I'm speaking about how I'm feeling that day. And I know that I have someone trusted to go to. And it's important to have these little coping strategies in your back pocket. So when you are having that bad day and you recognize that, it's something that you already know what to do. It's that little voice maybe inside your head that's telling you, okay, Stephanie, you're having a bad day, go outside for a walk. You know you're going to feel better when you do this. Or call your best friend. You know you're going to feel better when you speak to her. So write down those 3 things, have them with you wherever you need, and know when you are getting off track or maybe you're experiencing a day that's not so great, you know what to do and know how to take care of yourself. Because the reality is there's going to be bad days and we're going to have times where we have challenges. So how are we going to address those challenges? That's the real key. Another Liz and Molly image I like to highlight. In a lot of our goal setting journey, we always think that it's going to go straight up, right? And we think progress is going to be linear, or that's what we at least hope for. However, I think she did such a wonderful job in really artistically showing that that's really not how life works. It's going to be messy. It's going to get tangled. It's going to look discombobulated like such. But knowing that you have the power to make it, put the pieces back together and understand that you can get right back on track whenever you do have that bad day or you're feeling a little bit off. So I hope you guys wrote down your 3 things, because I promise you they really do help you in those essence that things may not always are going to go so well all the time. And that is okay, because it's all part of the journey. So breaking down our goal now, we have our goal, right? We understand, okay, this is how we're, labeling it to be specific. This is what I'm going to do whenever I'm a little bit off track of my goal. But my goal is like the top of the pyramid. There are some different other behaviors and habits that come underneath my goal for me to finally get there. And so when we're talking about developing new habits, sometimes it's not always easy, but we can make it easy if we have the right formula for it. And so this is a recipe that is created by BJ Fogg. He wrote a book called Tiny Habits, The Small Changes That Change Everything. And what he believes in his tiny habits method is when you're trying to embark on a new behavior, a new habit, you do have to make them really small. So for some people, for especially those who, thinking about, well, why is it worth my time to make this habit so small? Regardless if your motivation is up here today or down here, you've made that habit tiny enough where you know you can accomplish it. So the recipe that he designed in order for us to create these sustainable habits, right? That's the key word too, sustainable, is this little recipe card you see right here. So it's anchoring the moment in your routine that you're already doing every single day, tying that new behavior into that moment that, again, you're already doing. And then last but not least, and most important, is to celebrate yourself. Now, celebrating yourself may feel awkward or uncomfortable, right? We're always not the best at giving our bodies and our brains and our minds self-recognition, but that celebration is hacking in to the reward path, reward center in your brain and saying, okay, so this little action that I'm doing every day is making me feel good because I'm telling myself I'm doing a good job. The way that you celebrate looks different for everyone. You can do a verbal celebration and saying, okay, good job, Steph. Or you can tell yourself in your head and saying, okay, that felt good. Good job for performing this activity. It's important to create those little moments of celebration because when we know that we have felt good for doing something, we're going to want to keep doing it. And so a funny example that BJ Fogg gives in the book, he said he started this because he wanted to start doing push-ups. So he said, every time I use the bathroom, right, which is an existing routine you do many times throughout the day, he will do 2 push-ups. And towards the end, he said he's done about 40 or 50 push-ups. And a lot of his success is due to the fact of him giving himself that celebration. The one last thing I'll highlight on this slide is that the quote he has from his book and saying, I change best by feeling good, not by feeling bad. And we know that we can't shame ourselves into making a long-lasting, sustainable change. The story that we're telling ourselves and how we're rewarding ourselves is the impact that's going to make that change sustainable. And we're going to even enjoy the journey of that change. And that's the whole part too. It's enjoying the journey that's getting you to that destination. Okay. So other key points that I want you to remember along your journey, and this is going to be really helpful in accomplishing your goals and accomplishing the new intentions or behaviors that you've set out for yourself. The first thing is finding your community. I think I don't need to be the first person to tell you, but how important your social network and community is. I think we have learned that lesson immensely in this past 2 years, and we have figured out that our community is everything for us. We are wired to have that connection. And the great thing is, in any of your behaviors or changes that you want to make, you're not alone. There's so many people out there who are either on the same journey or who are in a profession that is willing to help you. So get your friends and family involved in your new journey or goal setting. Have a friend nearby that you can talk to when things are going bad and going well. If you need help from professionals, they're out there, right? And there's plenty of people out there that are willing to help you. So find your community and stick to it. And that's going to also be such an important piece of the puzzle in you accomplishing your goals and having someone to just lean to. The next thing I want you to remember, and we touched upon this a little already, is focus on the progress and don't think it has to be perfect all the time. I know that we are afraid to fail and afraid to get rejected, but the thing is, things aren't, our journey's not always going to be linear. It's going to go up, it's going to go down. And every time that you experience a failure, embrace it. You don't have to embrace it in the moment, right? Tomorrow's a new day. You can sleep on it and understand, wow, okay, so this is why this went a certain way. And, I'm going to use this failure as a learning opportunity for me to move forward. And maybe I'm going to then change my approach, because obviously the way that I designed this wasn't working in the first place. And so just look at that as your progress, and don't expect yourself for everything to be perfect all the time. And to go along with that, the last thing is, if one approach doesn't work, then change it. We are so quick to blame ourselves. It's incredible. It's really incredible how quick we are to blame ourselves. But the thing is, what if it's just the system or the process that we are using in order to get to our goals? And if we just change or alter that system just a little, then it's really looking on how that system was designed and how that can then be a better factor in helping us to achieve what we have set out for ourselves. It's not always on you, right? So you don't have to always blame yourself. One approach doesn't work, then you just gotta change it. Okay. With the last prompt that I want you all to write today. So this is setting yourself up, right? We wrote down our goals, we had it be specific. Now I want you to identify what is that one thing you will do today or this week to accomplish your goal or intention, right? We got to make a plan for it. So what is that one thing you're going to do today or this week to accomplish your goal? And the last Liz and Molly image I'll leave you all with today is understanding that good things take time. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean that it never will. And the last quote, I really do love quotes. They really do mean a lot for me. And I hope you guys all wrote down that one thing you will do today. But just another reminder, you may not get an A+ in everything every day, but you will celebrate the things that you will do well. You will give yourself grace and you will just be fine. And that is all that I have for you wonderful people today.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. We do have some questions that have come in, so I'm just going to get started on those.
Yeah.
You're ready? Okay.
Oh, I'm ready.
All right. So the first question is kind of about people getting in the way, I guess. It says, how do you best deal with people who get in the way of goals? I always feel like I have a friend or family member that trips me up.
Right. Yeah. No, and that's a difficult experience sometimes to go through, especially when we think about the holidays that just have passed and you have certain experiences that you may be going through, that your family members or friends may be asking you certain questions. As I mentioned before, I think it's so important to find your support and your network, and having that one person that you can trust and rely on. Closing out all of those negative thoughts around you aren't always going to be as easy, but understanding that you are focused on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish is for you. It's not based on what they think, or it's not based on any other people's opinions. How is this journey impacting you? And stay true to your why. And of course, have some of those friends and family members or loved ones, professionals that you around you that are supportive of your goal. And those are the people's opinions that matter the most.
Great. The next question is, do you use any apps to help you along with wellness goals?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good one. So something that I think I use pretty regularly to help me with stress is Headspace. Headspace was something that I definitely, it was my first introduction to meditation, and not that I meditate often, it helps me with sleep. During the pandemic, especially, they had these sleep casts, and in the beginning, it was just something to fall asleep to help with the noise that you may think when your head hits the pillow, and when that anxiety anxiety producing thoughts start to kick in. And so Headspace has really helped me with my sleep. And I think the other app that I may use, I have a Fitbit, so any type of smartwatch is a really great indicator for me to show that, okay, I'm being active today, or I'm being a little, maybe I'm not as active today, and that's a good way for myself to measure its progress.
Great. The next question is pandemic related. Are you seeing that people are having a tough time doing this? I assume they're meaning goal setting and working on wellness during the pandemic, or is it more of a motivation because people have the time on their hands?
Yeah, you know, it's so interesting. I think that, of course, the time that we're in has impacted us all, and it's impacted us all in different ways. And so when I think personally, I mean, at least for myself, my physical activity has not gotten to the level that it once was pre-pandemic. And that's still, I think, you know, adjusting into this new normal. But I find that when we even think about, right, the title of the presentation. Yes, I am back. Very sorry. My computer has never done this to me. And of course, it decides the perfect time to do that. I apologize. I really do.
That's okay. I was just saying, I said earlier that we've never had this happen before, and then I feel like I jinxed myself earlier. So I'm not sure. We did have 2 more questions, so I can.
Yes, please. And again, I apologize for that happening, but I'm happy that I was able to quickly join that.
Okay, so here is the next question. In regards to the think, feel, act concept, do you think it's important to feel those negative feelings through when you have a bad day, or should you just reframe the situation to have better thoughts about it?
Yeah, right. So when we're feeling those negative thoughts, those are a way for us to become self-aware on what we're actually going through. And there's only so much you can push those negative thoughts to the side, because then they do build up. So it definitely is important to feel those things. And that's the time where we can reflect on our actions and our feelings and be like, okay, well, why am I feeling this? And this action that I did today didn't make me feel as good. So why am I having this negative experience or thoughts about it? And that's a great way for you to dig a little bit deeper and learn more about yourself. And I find that, you know, sometimes when we're able to reflect on those negative feelings, we're then better able to talk about it and then be prepared in the essence that they do ever come up again. And that's a really healthy form of communication for yourself and for others.
Another question that we have are, what are your, I think you personally, what are your favorite self-care strategies?
Yeah, so I attributed to this a little in the presentation, but I would definitely say it's talking to one of my friends or my mom. It's having someone that I can speak to in the essence of who understands me and knows that I can just vent to without being judged. And that's another thing I feel like a lot of us sometimes get a little bit worried about. It's judging thinking the fact of what will happen if we say these things out loud. Will I get judged? Will I feel judged? And those feelings don't always feel the best. And so it's definitely having a friend or a loved one to talk to. And then there's something about getting outside. I mean, the research shows this, and you know, we have evidence to prove it, but getting outside and taking a walk and being immersed in nature and moving my feet and taking a big, deep, fresh breath of air. And those are things that I know when I'm sitting down, especially at work, and I'm like, okay, I have to get this done, you know, I'm having a really hard time. Instead of forcing myself to sit here, I know that if I just take a 5-minute walk outside, I'm going to have a much clearer vision and feeling on what I need to do. So it's definitely walking, and it's definitely having supportive people around me.
Great. And the final question that we have here is, do you have a go-to website to shop for self-care items?
Yeah, that's actually a really great question. So I like to look on thriveglobal.com. Thrive Global was a company founded by Ariana Huffington. And so they have a bunch of different topics on wellness in general, especially about like wellness in the workplace and just different habits and techniques you can adapt. Mind Body Green is a really good one too. Similar in having just really great articles from all different types of professions talking about health and wellness trends. Another one that I like, similar to Mind Body Green, is called Well and Good. And they have even like exercises on there as well. So that's a really great website. And then the last one I'll say is, and I know I talked about this before, was Headspace. So I follow Headspace on LinkedIn. And if you don't, I really do encourage you to do so. Headspace on LinkedIn, everything that they post, I need to write a letter to whoever is a social media manager over there, just because they really do make a difference in just the way on my workday is going or what I should be feeling and giving me advice. So Headspace on LinkedIn is a really important one.
All right, good. I'm going to go follow that right after this. That was our last question. When you were having a little technical difficulty there, I did tell everybody that you have provided us with some great resources, and we will put those with the recording in the library. So we can include some of those websites you just said as well, because they sound really great. But other than that, that was our last question. And I just want to thank you so much. I think this is a great start to 2022. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Perfect. Well, I thank you for giving me the opportunity, and thank you guys for all attending and being patient with me through technical difficulties, but I really appreciated everyone's time here today.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys. Have a good one.